Hi everyone, no news today, so let's get straight into the data. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So looking at fear and greed, you can see we were flat for the day, 69 today, 69 yesterday, and then looking at momentum and strength, no changes here, no changes on breadth either, still hovering in regular greed, put call ratio, still extreme greed, and then you can see here for volatility, still at that same level. Did hit the trend line, 1375, we'll see if that holds, and then safe haven demand continuing to trend in regular fear, and then junk bond demand, no changes there either. Moving over to seasonality, you can see a slight decline is what we expected based on these charts, and you can see that is what we got. Makes sense. So still moving in that period of weakness up until options expiration based on election years. Russell could get much worse based on the charts, but right now everything's kind of hovering in this negative 1 to 2% range. And then looking at the calendar, you can see Wednesday supposed to be bullish, and then no indicators here through the rest of the week. Moving over to the economic calendar, there was nothing really here for today. 30-year note auction came in pretty much at the same level as it was on the previous read. And then here for tomorrow, don't forget PPI as well as core retail sales absolutely going to push markets around. Inflation came in hot with CPI. I would expect PPI to come in hot as well. And then we'll see how the consumer does. And then looking at the Friday session, just some Michigan data, nothing really that's going to drive markets. So tomorrow being the last big day here for the economic calendar. Moving over to max pain, remember it's still all the way down at 493. Total options, 57 million, 5.7 million, put call ratio still very high. 520, still the top of markets in my expectation. 522, definitely the top. And then you got a put wall here at 510. So this is narrowed a little bit, 510 to 520 for the Friday session. Gives you about 1% in either direction, a little bit more risk to the downside than potential to the upside. But just keep in mind, that's probably where we're going to end up for the Friday session, even if we get the pop that we're looking for the Wednesday session based off of seasonality. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we were basically flat, dipped slightly in the pre-market, held into the mid-session, dipped into the end of the session, and then we're rallying up after hours. So basically flat on the day, 0.16 to the downside, momentum neutral, RSI basically neutral, still waiting for some clear direction on the indicators, and then you can see on the structure here for the daily chart, still bullish, and then looking at the indicators on the hourly, slightly bearish momentum, RSI neutral to bearish, so see if it pulls back a little bit. We did have a decent dip down to 513.86 or so, almost hit that 55 EMA, and then ended up bouncing right before the end of the session, so definitely worth noting. Volume on that candle looks a little bit bullish as a rejection potentially, so see how it plays out tomorrow, but right now still neutral on the SPY. Moving over to the NASDAQ, quite a bit more bearish. You can see that big fall pre-market, could not get above 443.91. I did add that level here. I also added one here at 441.81, dipped to that 200 SMA here on the hourly chart, ended up holding that and then rallying a little bit after hours, but that end of session dip was pretty aggressive. Let's see it here on the 15-minute chart. You can see we were kind of holding its structure in resistance, and then the 9 broke and we dipped all the way down to the lows of the day and then bounced into the end of the session. So pretty interesting there. Overall still looks neutral, and you can see here even on the daily chart you have a lower high off this previous high, but we're still in this uptrend holding that level. So we'll see what happens if this breaks. Obviously we're looking for much higher highs, but right now it does seem like we're finding a little bit of weakness. Could be a setup like this where you have a high, lower high, dip back down to support and then rally back up. If that happens, we should be up in the 450s over the next couple days, but right now momentum bearish, RSI bearish, and neutral here on the 15-minute chart. Let's look at it on the hourly. Still bearish here, bearish momentum, RSI bearish. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell was positive on the day, 0.39, just barely. You can see we did hold that level at 204.62, tested the next level 206.50, and then rejected from that level back into the middle of the range. Momentum slightly bearish, RSI neutral, so still not doing much anything, holding that trend line here. Tested it yesterday, didn't test it here today, but it's still holding in that same range from yesterday. So nothing changing on the Russell. And then looking at the Dow, slight positive day, 0.11. Momentum still rolling towards bullish. It's right at the trend. Next trend would be up around 395, and it does seem like it's headed in that direction. Moving over to the MAG7, you can see it was down on the day, 0.9. Momentum bearish, RSI breaking down here, so still looks bearish on this chart. We talked about it yesterday. Couldn't get to the SMA on yesterday's up channel. Up candle here today, inside candle looks bearish for sure. Momentum bearish, like I said, and it is selling off a little bit after hours. You have some trend support at 348.50. If that breaks, 21 down at 340. So MAG7 showing a little bit of weakness. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, both of these were bearish. As you would expect, Apple has been in a bearish structure. It's right at the level 170.90. If that holds, it could be okay. If that breaks, then you're looking at this previous wick low around 168.80 and then 165.71. That's the level that I've been watching going back here to October of 23. We'll see if that level touches. Momentum says it could go a little bit higher, but RSI is still bearish. So looking for a dip low, and then we'll see a higher low on RSI. So get that divergence, and then we'll see what happens from there. Right now, though, it does look a little bit bearish. And then looking at Tesla, big dumpster fire, 4.54% momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Still watching this dip low, flag, dip low. That price target is down around 125. I don't know if we'll get that low, but today does look weak. 167.34 is my current level of support. Below that, I have 152.40. Moving over to Meta and NVDA, following up on yesterday's video, you can see inside candle. So we were kind of expecting a bit of a pop today based on yesterday's bullish candle. Ended up getting an inside candle, so that's quite bearish. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish here. And then NVIDIA, similar thesis, 1.12% to the downside, still below the trend here. Waiting to see if that 9 EMA breaks at 878.48 and then 21 EMA down at 805.28. If that happens, that could be quite bearish. We did see a move like that, but it's even more extended now. I don't want to say that this could fall much further because NVIDIA's been a monster and it's probably going to go higher at some point, but right now it does look a little bit weaker than it has. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples was positive on the day, 0.25, still headed towards that 77.50 level. Continues to look strong, structurally very good. And then looking at discretionaries, another inside candle. It's been sideways for a couple days in a row now. Still holding the level at 180.10, but inside candle coming off of the bullish candle yesterday does look a little bit weaker, but definitely still in this same consolidation it's been in for about the last 7 trading days. Moving over to industrials and utilities, both of these positive on the day. You can see industrials 0.27, almost got to the trend line. Momentum still bearish, RSI still neutral. And then looking at utilities, pushing up to that next price target, up to that next resistance, 64.20, hit the trend line. We'll see what happens. Still want to see it get above, hold, push to 65.13. I do think that that's going to happen. Momentum has faded a little bit, but I think this is probably similar to the Staples chart where it did fade a little bit and then ended up going higher. Moving over to yields, 2-year and the 10-year both went higher on the day, so yields continuing to trend higher as we expected them to. Momentum continues to roll towards bullish. RSI still bullish on both of these. Everything looks good for these to go a little bit higher, and if PPI comes in hot, this is probably going to go up to 3.52 or so over the next couple days, if not in one shot. You can see here on 13 February, we did have a very strong push right up to that level, held a higher low off this previous dip low and the 55 EMA, and it's now headed higher. Similarly here on the 2-year, touched that 55 and rallying back above all the short-term EMAs. Seems like yields are set to go a little bit higher, which should be a little bit bearish for markets. Moving over to breadth here just for a moment, you can see we actually did pull back pretty substantially here today. Fully engulfed yesterday's candle on the 20-day average, tested that 9 EMA and then bounced a little bit. We'll see if it can get up in that 86.50 area. That is where you tend to see a little bit of resistance. You can see we got into that zone before, then rejected from that level. And then looking at the 50-day average, similarly, big wick higher, got to those previous highs, still did not close above 77.46. So we closed below it yesterday, closed below it here again today. Momentum starting to fade a little bit. So definitely some weakness coming in, but nothing crazy yet. And then looking at the 200-day here just for a moment, I want to highlight the fact this is the weekly chart, and you can see, look at where we're at right now. We are right at the highs from 1 January. We're above the highs here from January and July of last year. So current level, definitely high if we were to close at this level. Let's look at it on the daily chart. Similar thesis here to the 50-day average. You can see strong candle on the Monday session, weakness yesterday, and then we tried to recover some of that here today. So we'll see how it plays out. We did get a high close on that Monday session. You can see we closed well above the highs here from December, but showing a little bit of weakness. Overall, this is still bullish to me, looking for that 91.42 area. Moving over to the dollar. Dollar was a little bit weak on the day. You can see down 0.14%. Wick these previous lows here going back to Monday and then ended up bouncing a little bit. You can see it here, bounced a little bit into the mid session, selling off into the end of the session. Trend support for me down around 102.18 or so, but this still looks bearish. It certainly could hold here. You can see this consolidation, and you can actually see this gap here was finally filled. So this gap was from mid-January, gapped through there, rallied higher, eventually did come back and fill that gap, and now we'll see what happens. But like I said, this still looks weak in the short term. Might hold a higher low from this previous low, but definitely short-term bearish. Moving over to bonds, everything happened as you would expect. You can see J&K still flat right at the resistance, 94.82, closed right on it to the penny, and then TLT breaking back down to the trend, almost hit the 21 EMA down at 93.89, highly traded zone there as well, 93.88. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish, makes sense with yields going higher. I think this still could hold a bullish structure. So you have a low. If we establish a higher low here, then we could start to look for a higher high. We have not done that yet. So right now you have a bit of a neutral structure with a solid run off of a solid base, but momentum and RSI are both bearish. So a couple of mixed indicators. I would call it neutral. Moving over to volatility, you can see move index cratering here. VIX did go a little bit lower, still holding that 55 EMA, which is a little bit concerning. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. So want to see that break if markets are going to go higher. Right now it's still hovering, which is a little bit of a bad omen. You can see we held that same level, one dip low, got back above it and rallied higher. If this holds again, that could be an indicator that we're going to push higher up into that 1725, 1750 area. And then I have a level here at 1850. So we'll see how that plays out, but it's still holding a higher low on the VIX, which is concerning. Moving over to my accounts, I just want to highlight the fact that all of the indicators came off of Tasty Trade for some reason here today. So that's why I didn't go over any of those. I will go over them once they fix this platform, but right now it's not giving me any of my indicators that I like. So it's not worth going over this platform. And then looking at my current accounts, you can see I sold a 206 for 2 days from now for $1.16. Made some money on that position. It was slightly bullish, but still closed below my call strike. And then looking at the Qs, same thesis. I had a 441 put. I took the shares off, which ended up working out. So I should get assigned on those shares at 441 for 26 cents. So actually buying them at 440.75 or so, which is actually right where the market is after hours. And then looking at my positions, I did sell a 440 call for those shares that I'm going to receive for $2.12. I sold that right at the market at close. So that gives me about $1.75 potential profit on that per contract, or a little bit over $300 potential, which would be very solid over the next day. And then I did sell a 442 for 1 day from now on my covered call. Went a little bit higher and out of the money on that, and you can see there's some profit there already. I did that a little bit sooner before the end of the market, and then markets dipped pretty heavily into the end of the session like we talked about. So we'll see how that plays out. Might roll it down 1 or 2 tomorrow, depending on what kind of price action we see in the morning. Could be a good opportunity to let this run a little bit if we see a bounce. But right now, neutral in my main account, slightly bullish on my IRA, and then bullish here on the IWM as well. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the charts. Are we going to see that seasonal bounce, or are we going to continue lower on the PPI data tomorrow? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.